So let me create a new class called counter without a public static void main. This will going to implement runnable. So make sure that it implements runnable. So I have a thread and I have a long counter variable set to a value of 0. I have a constructor of the counter class which is receiving a value from the main method, and this is used to set the priority of the thread. So I instantiate a thread T and assign it to the instance, and I use this thread to set its priority to whatever has been passed. As I told you earlier, there can be only 10 priorities. 10 highest, 1 lowest, 5 is the norm. There are only 10 possibilities. Okay? Now, I will going to start a method here called start. So public void start. Now this is a local method. I'm not overriding anything. It's a local method. And here I will going to be using sort of kind of a flag which I want to share between the threads. Okay. So if I have a flag that I want to share between the threads, what should this flag be declared with? Which keyword? Volatile. Because I want it to be in the main memory. Volatile. Okay. Boolean go flag. We're going to set it to false. Okay, start. Go flag should turn to true as soon as the start method gets called. And then we will going to call the start method on the thread. So as soon as T, that's what I called it, T.start. So as soon as the local start method gets called, it should change the flag status to true, and then it should run the thread. Okay. Very similarly, I'm going to now code a public void end method which would allow me to set the go flag back to false. Guys, who can tell me how can I create an infinite loop? Exactly. You write a loop and just say true. That means this loop will never end. Okay? Now, instead of saying this, I'll say while go flag. Means as long as the flag's value is true, you keep looping. That's exactly what I'm doing in my run method. And every time you loop, all I want you to do is, I want you to increment the value of counter by 1. So what this program does so far, the logic says, it will allow you to create a thread, set its priority. You can call the start method to set the go flag to true. And you can call the start method, which we're going to call run. The run method on line 26, we're going to keep running the loop as long as the go flag is true, which we set on line 16, until and unless we call end, which will terminate it. Okay? And now, every time the go flag runs, the counter's value is going to be incremented by 1. Now, let's switch over to create a new class here. And this new class will going to help us run this other class. We're going to call this one priority check, with a public static void main. Now let me create some objects of counter type. Counter C1 equals to new counter. Remember that counter requires you to pass a value in its constructor. So I can say thread dot norm priority, which is 5. So let me create a total of 5 counters. 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to give them different priorities. So I have different priority threads. So basically their priorities are like this: 5, this will be 4, this will be 9, this will be 2, and this will be 7. So lines 5 through 9, I'm calling the constructor of the counter class, and I'm passing a priority which will going to create a thread. With that priority, it will going to create that thread. Okay? Am I starting the thread yet in the constructor? No. Where do the thread get started? In the start method. So I need to call for each counter a local start method which will going to start the thread for me. So I have a counter 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. So now I'm starting the thread. Now I want my threads to sleep for a second, for example. You know, I just wrote them in a condensed form, my try-catch block, instead of spreading them out. Okay. Now, I would like to end my threads. End threads. So C1 dot end. What is the purpose of ending that thread? What does the end thread function do that I've coded in the counter class? The job of the end thread is to simply set the go flag to false. Now, once I do this, I would now like to see each of the counter, okay, because each one of them will going to have its own value for counter. So it will see when the loop ends, where is each one of the counters. So we're going to say system.out.println counter 1 C1 dot counter two, 3, 4, 5 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. So what basically happens is we have 5 threads that we create with different priorities. So they're picked up by the different CPUs based on the priorities. Now they each start and they each run in CPUs. Now what we do here is that we call the start method in the counter class. What does the start method do? The start method in each one of them sets the go flag to true, and it starts the start method. Correct? It starts the start method which runs. Now remember, what is the nature of go flag? Go flag is volatile. What is the nature of counter? Non-volatile. So each one of them maintain their own counter, but they share the value of go flag. So any one of them who changes the go flag will change for everybody. So now what happens is they each start to run and each start to sleep for 1 second, and they run and sleep and run and sleep, and the counter goes going like crazy, and then the end happens. Whichever of the 5 ends will run first. We have written them in sequence, but we don't know which one of the 5 will run first. It all depends on the availability. So whichever of the 5 ends first, it actually ends everybody. Why? Because the go flag is shared. Because it's volatile. So as a result, when these guys come back to you, they each are at a different value when the flag went off.